In today's video, we're going to continue on with our series covering all 31 NHL teams, where we recap their 17-18 season and look ahead and discuss what we should expect from them in the 2018 offseason. Today's team we're going to discuss is the San Jose Sharks, and that's coming up next. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We review and discuss all 31 NHL teams, so if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. So as I mentioned off the top, today we're going to discuss the San Jose Sharks. We're going to do a quick recap here, their 17-18 season, and look ahead and discuss what should we expect from them as we go into the 2018 NHL offseason. Now, as we know, the Sharks had a pretty solid regular season, finishing third in the Pacific Division with a record of 45, 27, and 10 for a 100-point season, so that's certainly pretty solid. They beat the Anaheim Ducks without any trouble at all in round one of the NHL playoffs, but unfortunately fell to the Vegas Golden Knights in round two. So overall, though, still a pretty solid season for the Sharks. Now let's take a look at some of their team numbers and team stats and how they fared in a few different categories here. They scored 247 goals for, puts them 13th in the NHL. They also allowed 226 goals against, which put them 9th. So, not fabulous numbers, but they're certainly in the upper echelon of the league, which is certainly not too bad at all. You want to ideally be in top 10 in both categories if you really want to have a strong chance to contend in the playoffs. Goals against, they were in the top 10, and goals for, they were just on the outside. So really overall, pretty solid, not too bad at all. On the power play, they had a pretty solid rating at 20.6%, which puts them 16th in the NHL, so about average, which isn't too bad, but obviously could be room for improvement there for sure. The PK was really solid at 84.8%, which put them second best in the NHL. So their PK was pretty solid. Obviously, that goes along with having really solid goals against. So the defensive side of the game for the Sharks was pretty good this year. Offense was pretty good, just slightly a bit above average. I think it's safe to say if they can improve their scoring a bit for next year, that'll certainly be the way to go to improve their overall team. So let's jump in here. We're going to take a look at some individual stats and discuss some players who had really solid years and some players who we'd like to see improve moving forward. Now, obviously, Brent Burns was their leading scorer. Obviously, he's a rover out there. He does a lot of things really well on the offensive side of the game for the Sharks. Obviously, he's a defenseman, but he really plays a lot like a forward. He's been a forward in the past. He ended up putting up 67 points. His defensive play wasn't the best this year. He didn't have a really great plus-minus, but offensively, he led the way. It was a very important player for the Sharks yet again. Obviously, Logan Couture had a really solid year, putting up 34 goals, so he was key for the Sharks down the stretch quite a bit. Evander Kane, even though he was only picked up at the trade deadline, I'm going to list him as a bright spot. He seemed to fit in really well with the club and put up some excellent production here once he was picked up after the deadline. Not too bad in the playoffs as well, so we'll put Kane as a bright spot as well. I thought goaltender Martin Jones had a really solid season. Not quite strong enough to get into the Vezina conversation, but still an overall really solid year from Jones for sure. He had a 30-22-6 record with a 2.55 goals against average and a .915 save percentage. So very respectable, solid numbers for Jones. So obviously they got good, solid goaltending, pretty decent defending. If they could have got some more players having some more offensive years, then they certainly could have had an even more successful season and might have stood a better chance in the playoffs. Now, taking a look at a few areas that didn't go quite so well for this team. Obviously, Paul Martin didn't have a great year, spent majority of the season in the minors. That's a contract they would have liked to have gotten off the books, but unfortunately, we're not able to. So it's too bad that he wasn't able to contribute more. Joe Thornton obviously spent a lot of time on injury reserve this year. That's 2 years in a row that Jumbo Joe's had pretty significant injuries. So you certainly have to question his future. He doesn't have a contract going into next year, and he's had 2 years of consecutive significant injuries. So we'll see how that impacts the twilight here of his career for sure. Another player who I thought's been a bit on the decline, and he's not as young as he used to be, but still I think there's room to get more out of him, and that's Captain Joe Pavelski. 2 seasons ago he scored 38 goals, then he dropped down to 29, and then this past year he was at 22. So we've seen back-to-back consecutive years of declining numbers out of Pavelski. Might help if he was able to play with some different line mates maybe. So we'll see if the Sharks do some rejuggling here to kind of rejuvenate their offensive game for the coming year. But unfortunately, it looks like Pavelski's on the decline. and if they could find a way to kind of rejuvenate and boost him up, it would go a long way in helping the team. Now, the main transaction we saw out of this club throughout the year was picking up Evander Kane to the trade deadline, like I mentioned. Obviously, he was a really solid pickup. They have since signed him to a big extension, so he's going to be a Shark for a long time to come, and it looks like he fit really well with that club. Now, let's jump in here to the off-season stuff. Let's look at their contracts, any pending UFAs or RFAs, and anybody who's eligible for a contract extension this offseason. Under the UFA category, the most significant one is Jumbo Joe Thornton. Obviously, he's been a Shark a very long time, a very big part of that organization's success. He's working his way up the all-time scoring list. Really, really solid player. Arguably one of the best in the league who does not have a Stanley Cup to his name. So you have to wonder if he'll come back. I think it looks like he does want to play next season. It looks like the Sharks are interested, but they have a lot of other moves to kind of look at as well. I think for Jumbo Joe to stay, he's going to have to take a hometown discount and certainly reduce his salary from this past season. But certainly a player to watch this year. Wouldn't surprise me to see him come back on another one-year deal. Other prominent UFAs they've got here is Eric Fair, Joel Ward, and Yannick Hansen. Certainly possible that it's hard to say if certainly a possibility that none of these guys may return. Wouldn't be a complete shocker. Obviously, Ward and Fair played fairly small roles down the stretch. And Hansen's a player who you could consider bringing back or maybe letting go. That one's not really clear at this point, but the main UFA that they'll consider bringing back here is Joe Thornton. For the RFA category, they don't have too much to worry about here either, but they do have Thomas Hertl. They need to get him a new deal, so obviously he's a player that's important to this team, and they're going to want to get him signed. More than likely going to be a bridge contract would be my guess, somewhere between 2 to 4 years. Would more than likely be the logical plan here, but they need to work on getting a contract for Hertl completed. Otherwise, for RFAs, they have Dylan DeMello and Chris Tierney, so obviously I'm quite sure they'll qualify them, keep them around. Obviously, being RFAs, there's no point letting them walk to be UFAs. You might as well give them a qualifying offer. And at this point in their careers, I think they at least deserve a chance to be part of the organization in some capacity. So let me know down in the comments with the UFAs and the RFAs, what do you think is important for them to look after for contracts this summer? And are any of these players guys that they should just let go and move on from? Now, they do have some big decisions to make on contract extensions this year. The two big ones are Logan Couture and Joe Pavelski. They're both set to be UFAs next season. So obviously that's something they need to look at. Pavelski's deal, if he gets one, will certainly be shorter given his age. Pavelski's 4 to 5 years older than Couture, so obviously at 33 years old, he's going to get a shorter contract. But I'm sure they probably wouldn't mind re-upping him for a few more years. But then again, they may take the wait-and-see approach with that. Not that they wouldn't want him, but they might want to see how he does this year to kind of better evaluate what kind of contract he gets. I would not be shocked at all, though, to see Logan Couture get a longer-term extension completed this summer, somewhere between 6 to 8 years. He's still young enough that you can give him a longer-term contract. They shouldn't have any trouble committing They shouldn't have any trouble committing fair value to him money-wise either. He's been a great player for them, solid 30-goal guy, very important clutch offensive player. So I can certainly see them getting a longer-term deal done with him this summer. Now, looking ahead here to the 2018 NHL Draft, which is just a mere few days away, they do have their first-round pick, which is late in the first round. They are without a second and third-round pick, though, so it is possible we may see them kind of maybe make a few little minor moves here to try to pick up second or third-round picks to get some more prospects into the cupboard here. That's certainly a possibility, but they'll certainly make good use of their first-round pick. Even though it's a late first-round pick, they should be able to get themselves a pretty solid player. I recently completed an NHL mock draft video for the entire first round of the NHL draft coming up here. Now, I did it in 2 sections, so there's actually 2 videos, picks 1 through 15 in one video, and picks 16 through 31 in the other. So if you'd like to see who I thought they should select with that first round pick, certainly go ahead and watch those videos. There's a link down below in the description to those, so check that out. Now, the Sharks have certainly been rumored to be interested here in players like a John Tavares or an Ilya Kovalchuk. They have all kinds of cap space. Well, we've certainly seen an interesting move happen here yesterday with Mike Hoffman being traded from the Ottawa Senators to the San Jose Sharks, and then the Sharks turned around and flipped him over to the Florida Panthers for 3 draft picks. So in that process, they end up sending forward Mikhail Boedker to the Senators, getting $4 million of cap space off the books, which is certainly a big help. So really, then they turned around and flipped Hoffman for 3 picks. So it was a great move by Doug Wilson. I think at the same time, though, would have been wise to keep him. But obviously, he has other plans, and they must have some other big-name free agents that they're going to make a run at here. And obviously, the 2 big ones, in my opinion, would be Tavares and Kovalchuk. They've both been mentioned before as being interested in those players. And once the window opens up that they can speak to Tavares especially, I can certainly see them trying hard to push here to try to get him him signed. Hard to say how successful they'll be because they're not going to be alone in the bidding war, but certainly they're trying to do something big here. In my opinion, that Hoffman deal was just a matter of really doing like a cap dump and gaining some picks. So it was a brilliant move, I think, by Doug Wilson. I don't think Sharks fans would have any issues at all if they're able to sign John Tavares. It would be a tremendous move for the franchise. But if you're a Sharks fan, I'd like to hear from you down in the comments. What would you think if they were able to bring in Ilya Kovalchuk on a 2 or 3 year contract? That's rumored to be what he's looking for. Probably looking at $5 to $6 million would be my guess. So what would your thoughts be on bringing in some free agents here? Do you think Tavares and Kovalchuk either are likely to sign? And what would your thoughts be if they went ahead and were able to do that? So obviously the San Jose Sharks offseason's already been underway here with the trade we just talked about with the Senators and then off to the Florida Panthers with Mike Hoffman. So obviously the running joke lately that I've seen online was longtime San Jose Shark Mike Hoffman traded to the Florida Panthers. I'm sure he had a great couple hours being part of the organization. But all jokes aside, this team is going to be very busy and there's going to be a lot to look out for with the Sharks. They got a lot of cap space. They seem to be really aggressive and they certainly have some big moves that seem to be kind of in the works here. So I think it's one of the more exciting teams to watch for sure. With the draft coming up here just a couple days, wouldn't be surprised to see them be active there, and then again on July 1st when free agency kicks in. So let me know down in the comments what you expect out of the Sharks team in this offseason. I think they're going to be one of the more interesting and fun teams to watch. If you're new to the channel, hope you consider subscribing. We cover all 31 NHL teams. There's plenty of content here for all hockey fans to enjoy. If you're interested in the NHL draft, there's plenty of content on that as well, so check that out. There's a link down below in the description to our draft playlist. As always, thank you very much for watching, everybody. We will catch you next time.